as each domino falls, and we should be thankful that some of the dominoes are smaller than others. I guess for economists, it's interesting to see now, okay, just how did the nature of the global economy change, and now our food supply is getting into more and more focus. There's always been that question about globally, how many people are on starvation, how many people are able to have enough food available to them. And I think that math is becoming more and more complicated as time goes on, and things like this continue. And given global weather patterns, we should be mentally prepared to hear about other situations like this. It doesn't have to be our suppliers that are affected. Again, once the world supply drops, overall price will rise. I don't think it's going to necessarily be limited to Ukraine grain and Indian rice. Eventually, some other shoe is going to drop, and we'll have to figure this out. So keep that in mind. I asked 2 budgets ago, what do we have for a rainy day in cases like this? Still haven't had that answer yet, because I'm very certain everything that we have extra is being used to pay off the debt on the books. We ain't even reached with the debt, not on the Ministry of Finance's books and national budget. But let's move on to the next topic. And this one, I am not entirely sure what to make of it. Because on one hand, we're not talking about billions of dollars or millions of dollars. We are talking about a few $100,000 though. No, sorry, I lied. We're talking about $86,000. We ain't even talking about a few $100,000. And well, the contract is worth $449,000 to do, I believe, a series of things. But specifically, money was paid in order to construct a pagoda on Little Tobago, I believe at the end of the wharf at Little Tobago. This is to help with regards to the tourism to Little Tobago. You leave Speyside, you go to Little Tobago, you know, you have some sort of facility. Okay, I understand that. That was what was in the plan, that's what was paid to the contractor. That is not what the contractor did. Instead, he provided a pagoda. Instead of on Little Tobago, he provided it on Tobago. He provided it to the jetty that you go to leave to go to Little Tobago, not on Little Tobago. Now, some might say, well, what's the big deal? You know, it's not as though money was stolen outright. The flip side is, since when does a contractor seemingly have the capacity to decide, oh, I'm not going to do the project that you paid before. I'll do a similar project that I believe you want, but I'll do it in a different location. Granted, maybe in the long run, on a practical level, it won't be a big deal. On a practical level. On a legal and technical level, it brings up questions. I'm not necessarily going to say that we have to assume the worst in this situation. And the worst is that, you know, the contractor is kind of doing whatever he wants and is not actually obeying the terms and conditions of what he was hired to do. And it's public funds. And then, you know, the implication is that could happen in a less benign manner. Or that could be happening in many ways. Or multiple other circumstances or situations that are all possibly less benign. Again, this is assuming the financial calculations of the contract and the projects don't have anything that we need to be concerned about. It causes one to ask questions: to what extent is the THA properly managing its money, how it selects contractors, how it oversees their work? To be fair, what started, I guess you could say, the introductory chapter or phase 0, because I'm not necessarily going to say this is where the drama started on the side of Farley Augustine. But this is where drama in Tobago started, was with regards to the whole Roxborough dancers. Watson Duke made a big stink, and to be fair to Farley Augustine, he had to tell them, whoa, money cannot just be released on your say-so. Political leader of a party is not financial controller of an executive body. So I get that. At least we have precedent that the THA kind of knows what they're doing, hopefully. But the flip side is, this is an odd thing. If this was a larger project, whoa, the concern level and the urgency to find out the truth would be much greater. But because it's not that big of a project, it might just go under the radar. People might just discount it. This is a couple of days after hearing about the fact that the office that was supposed to be, for all intents and purposes, the THA's office in Trinidad, kind of like an embassy. I believe it was opened with some fanfare. I believe that was supposed to be Duke's office as Deputy Chief Secretary, who would have been in charge in advancing the cause of Tobago autonomy. And that building more or less went unused to the tune of thousands of dollars in rent. So that's putting it lightly. I can't remember what the rent was. It was not cheap, and it more or less went empty. And I believe the THA, they had a lease. I don't know if they could have broken the lease. So now that the lease is over, it's done. They're abandoning that project. That made me wonder, is this a sign of their inexperience? You know, you have something you think is a good idea, it doesn't pan out, you're kind of stuck holding the ball. It's a bit of a waste of money. Not the end of the world, but still not something you want to have. You don't want money being wasted. You don't want tens of thousands of dollars being wasted over nothing. And now we have this. The flip side is some people might say, see, conspiracy, multiple attacks on the THA. I personally think when somebody looks bad, there's an incentive in journalism to find more dirt, because it's easier to find dirt when there's a perception that someone is already dirty. Well, at least that's the expectation. So, again, I don't necessarily know what to make of it. If someone from Tobago could call in and give me more details. I don't necessarily think the story made it completely clear after reading through the story once. It could be several $100,000 with regards to the entire contract, and I don't know to what extent all of that was spent in the wrong location. Technically, it's for the same general tourism product. That's what makes it interesting. But again, it wasn't what the contract was for. Anyway, moving on. Third story. And this is one that I want to highlight, not necessarily for the immediate victims. And I'll call them victims on the basis of assuming their claims to be true. And that is with regards to, I believe it's 70 or so illegal immigrants still being detained at the heliport. I could be wrong on that number, but I believe it's 70 that applied to be released. And they're basically saying release us or we will have to send a legal letter. And one of the things that I'm concerned about, first off, they were detained at a facility. The judge said, well, it's not a proper facility. The minister has to declare it. He then declares it. The problem is, one might think, oh, well, you see, now it's declared, now it's official. Legally, what was their status for the 15 or so days that they were reported to have been detained there when the facility was not legally a detention facility? Then I have a serious question with regards to the fact that it's not a prison facility. From what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's being run by the Coast Guard. At least it was being run by the Coast Guard. That's why there's a Coast Guard officer, at least one, who has been accused of sexual assault or rape. So there's that. Then there is the fact that the people, it has been claimed that the food being provided to them is bad enough that it makes them sick. And that they, for all intents and purposes, cannot survive off of the food being provided by the facility. If you detain someone, you're supposed to feed them with edible substances, not things that will make them sick. So, what's happening is, apparently, allegedly, family members are bringing food for them, and apparently, allegedly, that food is not making it to the detainees. That's another question. Apparently, officers have even gone so far to threaten detention or deportation of family members who are trying to persist in delivering food. What is that? Is that even legal for those threats to be made? It's also claimed that food is just being outright taken, which I assume means that it's being eaten by officers at the facility. Again, there's no proof to this. It is alleged. My point is, we already have one situation where the obvious law and order of the facility is under question and is being investigated in a rather serious way. And I have heard that prison food isn't the best food to begin with. So I could believe, it's reasonable to believe some of these claims. It's also reasonable to believe in the worthlessness of Coast Guard officers or other Defense Force personnel who might be manning this facility, this makeshift facility. That, I mean, if you're upset with Trump detaining and separating families, don't mind the fact that that was technically American laws well before him. But if you are upset about those facilities, this is people in a hangar behind a chain link fence. Have you felt the heat over the last several months? And the reason why I bring it up is not to say, woe are these Venezuelans. If you don't care about Venezuelans, fine. I mean, I would generally be concerned about human beings that, you know, in general. But say you don't care about them, fine. Here's the rub. If it could happen to them, it won't be long before it could happen to you. And the fact of the matter is, things like this do give credence when TNT prisoners of domestic prisons want to complain about the conditions of their prisons. And we've heard that to be bad, right? And things like that make detaining people more difficult when you put them in horrible conditions. So if it could happen to them, how long before it happens to us? It could be any one of us. That's the whole point about, you know, not speaking out. That's the saying. I believe it's a quote from World War II when it was talking about the Jews. Yeah, but it could happen to me too when they run out of people to go against. Granted, it's not going to be that clear-cut and that straightforward, but let's not underestimate it. Folks, I'm over my time, so I'm going to spare myself from the last topic, which would have been exceptionally controversial. But yeah, just bear that in mind. What could happen to the least in society could very much happen to the rest of society. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into what I think is the big story coming out of yesterday with our usual Wednesday contributors. Stay tuned. This is Talking Point on WSN, your content capital.
As you age, there is an increased risk of being diagnosed with arthritis, but younger individuals can get affected as well.
When you tell them, but no, I need you to move your joints, you need to move it, otherwise it gets stiffer and it exacerbates the problem. There's that misconception that if I move it, it's more pain.
So if you're to focus on these risk factors, then to me, it will help a large portion of the population, probably prolong, I should say, the inevitable, because inevitably you will develop arthritis.
What's Up Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Did you tell your hubby about it, first of all?
I did.
When you were telling him, did you think that he was going to think differently of you or less of you?
I thought exactly that.
In case you've missed it, it's an encore of Nicole Larson Live. Relive some of the riveting experiences of everyday people who candidly shared with me their stories, life challenges, stories of hope, and eventual victories.
Because he is not like man, because he is the God. It is a promise that we can hold on to.
The report came back that she had two properly...
Eric, behave yourself, no man.
Two properly working kidneys.
An encore of Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Talking World, ladies and gentlemen. And joining me, of course, is a good lady of Talking Point herself. Sorry, my brain wanted to go in multiple different directions there, so I wasn't entirely sure which one to pick. But when in doubt, pick Karen Neseshera. Morning, Karen.
Good morning to you, Sean, and good to be back in the studio. From those always in the United States, but in different locations. So I'm glad to be back here.
Yes, it was quite interesting. I did some minor traveling as well.
I have to admit, it could be partly Tobago where I was completely blacked out.
Zoom is not a fun way to have to do this job, but it's good, of course, to also have you in person as well.
Thank you.
And there's a lot to get into. You're actually cluing me into another story that I somehow missed yesterday. That is tangentially very, very by the way related to what we're really going to talk about, and that is with regards to the appeal court upholding the ruling that the sale of Clico Energy, oh gosh, I can't remember the
shareholders agreement.
The sale to Proman of part of. There we go.
That's all right. I will try and fill in the blanks as best I can.
Clico's Energy. Yes, Clico's Energy. I don't know why.
But it's not called Clico's Energy.
Yes,
anymore.
the name has changed. Process Energy Limited.
Trinidad Limited. Right. Okay, but yeah.
So they have upheld the appeal that transaction. Well, I do believe that they did not say it's fraud. So on the
no, they did. No, you mean the High Court? No, they called it said it was fraud.
But they've also said that the transaction itself, it's more or less, it should not have gone through, it can't go through. Right. It hasn't been ratified.
So I'm going to try to focus on why I want to bring this up. One, because I did play a part as a witness in the High Court hearing of the matter. And of course, as soon as the decision came down from the Court of Appeal, I was immediately sent a copy of the judgment, which I was very pleased to get. And the person who sent it to me said, you were mentioned quite a few times in my capacity as former Minister of Finance in regard to how things, I would imagine, the decision that the courts would have made. So before I get into, if you don't mind, because I think a lot of people, and even myself had to go and refresh myself on the issue. So what it is really is that Proman Limited is a huge player. They're based in Switzerland, but I can tell you they are the largest. They have the largest methanol producer in the world. They also own the largest, what they call it, Methanol 5 standalone methanol company in the world. They have 8 methanol plants. They produce methanol, ammonia, urea, nitrate, fertilizers. They are big in the dance, as people would say. Very, very, very big. So that is Proman, which is a global leader, and they're based in Switzerland. So it's Proman on the one hand, and then you have Clico Energy Limited, which became PETL. It was formerly, it's now called Process Energy Trinidad Limited, but before it was Clico Energy Limited. So what really happened was, and which is why I am here today to talk about the MOU, which is really my focus. I'm not here to give you a lecture on what the decision of the court and all the reasoning. What the court upheld was 2 things that the High Court Judge, Ravindra Rampasad, and who came in very high praise by the Court of Appeal, by the way, was Justice Gregory Smith delivered the judgment on behalf of the Court of Appeal, with which the other 2 judges, Justice Kukaram and Justice Alice York Suhan, were in agreement. So what is the issue therefore? The issue is, you will note that the appeal was made by Proman Holdings and PTHL, Process Energy Trinidad Limited, against CLF and Clico. Why CLF and Clico? Because CLF and Clico are not the ones really bringing the action. When the financial collapse occurred, the central bank, under its powers, under the Central Bank Act, Section 44D, emergency powers, took control of the assets and the holdings of Clico and CL Financial. So it is really, in a sense, not Lawrence Dupree bringing an action, because it would be very strange for him to do that. It is really the central bank who is now trying to recover much of what the government and successive governments had to pay out to bail out what had happened with Clico. So I think that's the background to it. This is why the appeal is so important. And the appeal did uphold the decision of the High Court judge, who, as I said, was highly quoted and quoted me, which made me feel very vindicated. I have to say, I feel very vindicated. Upheld the decision of the High Court judge. I came in for a lot of praise, and said that the PSA, the shareholding agreement, entered into by Lawrence Dupree on February the 3rd, just 3 days after signing an MOU with the government of Trinidad and Tobago, which I represented as Minister of Finance, and he, Dupree, on behalf of CL Financial, and that MOU, which I will look at a little bit, and which is why I feel I needed to be here. It's just 2 days ago the judgment was delivered. Effectively was the basis upon which the court, in my respectful opinion, held that the shareholding agreement, where Dupree, 3 days after signing that agreement, surreptitiously entered into agreement with Joseph Cassidy Proman to sell the shares of CL Financial and Clico, which amounted to 51% shareholding, majority shareholding. I think 34% would be held by CL Financial and 17% by Clico, which he said he held in trust, to Proman behind the government's back, in breach, clear breach of a MOU that he had signed only on January 31st. And the court said that he had breached that agreement, and that the court, if you read the judgment, the court has said, and I wish I had time to go through it all, but the court acknowledged that before the MOU was signed, Mr. Dupree could have done what he wanted. He had full reign of the company, and he could not be stopped because it was a family-owned company, and he called the shots. It was the MOU which Dupree, when you read the judgment, and Gita Sakal recognized that MOU placed restrictions on his ability to do as he wanted. And what the MOU required, among many other things, and it's quoted clauses 20 to 22, is that any sale, first of all, the responsibility of Clico, CL Financial, to reveal all its assets, because that in itself was a difficulty. We didn't even know how much they had in this company, at least when we signed under tremendous pressure. But also that they had to give the government a schedule of all the assets it held, and it had to get the agreement of the government before it sold any of those assets. Mr. Dupree signed that, and yet 3 days later, whilst he had signed it, it's all in the judgment. Gita Sakal, his company secretary, is quoted. She says she'll do everything in her power to ensure that the government does not get control of Clico or CL Financial. And what do? Behind the back of the government, and I was the minister then, negotiated the sale of the 51% shareholding in PTL to Proman Limited at a gross undervalue. So what the court said, the Court of Appeal said, it not only affirmed that this shareholding agreement was validly set aside, and therefore the issue of ratification, which we're not going into two legalese, could not arise, that the shares were sold at a gross undervalue, and thirdly, overturning the decision of the trial judge, which we are not going to go into either, that they found sufficient evidence of fraud using the objective test. So that's it. But so on every level. But why I'm here is because without the MOU, none of this could have happened. Without the MOU, he could have done what he wanted. And to understand what PTL means, those two companies, Clico, Proman Holdings, Barbados Limited, they are the company that is, as they say on their website, a global leader in methanol and fertilizer, natural gas, ammonia, urea, melamine. They have the second largest methanol producer in the world. The methanol is vital to the production of a number of products, including auto parts and paint, etc. Proman owns the largest standalone methanol plant. It has 8 methanol plants in Trinidad and Tobago. So Proman Holding Limited is the company based in Switzerland that owns all of this. So where's PTL come into it? PTL, which was Clico Energy Limited, right, was incorporated in Trinidad and Tobago. And what the purpose of that holding company is it derived its income from the investments of Proman. So when Proman was investing all over the world and making huge, the judge said a high-yielding investment company, all those investments and all the profits that they obtained from Proman or globally, this Clico Energy Limited, which became PTLE, was entitled to 51% of those dividends that were to be paid to shareholders. So you understand, you are dealing with potentially billions of dollars. And Lawrence Dupre is in the report. Lawrence Dupre, I was in, just to make it a little bit more direct, I mean, it was carnival time, and I recall someone came up to me and told me that, you know, Lawrence Dupre just sold the shareholding of Clico and CL Financial to Proman. I said, but how could he do that? The MOU prevents him from doing that. He said, well, he did it. And this is what this is all about. And I feel very vindicated because I wish I tried to get the pages in the judgment where they talked about the bailout. I have to do this because I feel that persons have to understand, and this government has to understand that whilst they believe that they should say all the negative things about me without any proof or anything, I wish they'd bring it. I mean, I could say things about our Prime Minister that has more proof than what they say about me taking out my money. Why doesn't he say that it was a PNM Minister of Finance that prevented Trinidad and Tobago from going under? Why? It's in the report. It says in the report, quoting from the High Court judge, that Clico, CL Financial, had $101 billion worth of assets in Trinidad, which accounted to 76% of our gross domestic product. Do you understand how big Clico was? And the court acknowledged that, and I am trying to find the exact quotation from the court, because I don't want to say that I said, so they said at paragraph 17, right, with the Minister of Finance, Karen Nunes-Chira, testified to several meetings anyway. And the purpose was to contain the systemic and contagion risk which the CLF group posed to the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. It was for those principal reasons that the government made the decision to intervene to ensure the financial integrity of Clico and, of course, the protection of the economy. Because at that time, people may forget, but you had a global financial crisis. Lehman Brothers had gone under. Bear Stearns went under in a weekend. Countries like Iceland, Spain, and Portugal, for the first time, so-called developed nations were going to the IMF to bail them out. And what was the reason that all these financial institutions found themselves in that place? Is because loss of confidence. When people lose confidence in your ability to manage, because no bank has all the money to pay all its shareholders or its depositors. They can't do it. They depend on you having confidence in them. And the reality is, I guess this is, reality is that the reason why, in my respectful opinion, from January 13th, when I was told by the governor of the central bank, the parlor state of CL Financial, for 2 weeks, under tremendous and anxious, we were under so much stress, and I as Minister of Finance, on behalf of the government, greatest fear, one, that the story would break. Once the story broke, there would be a lineup behind Clico, Republic Bank, CL Financial would 51% shareholding in Republic Bank. And they spill out and a knock-on effect. And at that time, oil was trading. It fell from $100 in September to $23 in January. The judge also quoted, he didn't quote that, but I can tell you that because we had to go back to Parliament. But he did say that the ammonia fell from $900 US per metric ton to $100. You understand what was happening? It was a global phenomenon. So the MOU, if I can just, I wanted to get to the point which I had made, that which the court acknowledged and which made provision that he could not sell, deal with, do anything with any of the assets without giving us a schedule and without us agreeing to the sale. So that's why it was, that was the basis. And the court has said this. I'm looking for the actual wording of the court.
I'll tell you what, Karen. As you look for that, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with this judgment and Karen's commentary, because this is just the latest chapter on the ongoing saga of the collapse of the entire Clico fiasco, which I think still to this day has important considerations to our nation, our society, and our economy. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
As you age, there is an increased risk of being diagnosed with arthritis. But younger individuals can get affected as well.
When you tell them, but no, I need you to move your joints. You need to move it, otherwise it gets different. It exacerbates the problem. There's that misconception that if I move it, it's more pain.
So if you're to focus on these risk factors, then to me, it will help a large portion of the population probably prolong, I should say, the inevitable, because inevitably you will develop arthritis.
What's up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Welcome back to Talking About, ladies and gentlemen. And if you've missed the show up until now, Karen was now explaining with regards to the judgment from the Court of Appeal that upheld the ruling that not only invalidated the sale of Clico Energy's assets, now known as Process Energy Trinidad Limited, to Proman, but it also then went further and basically found the transaction fraudulent. Now, this ruling could potentially cost Proman to the tune of $2 million, which more or less represents the value of the dividends on the shares and the value of the shares of Process Energy Limited itself. And ironically, this ruling also means that CL Financial and Clico have to pay back the $46.5 million that was given to them for the sale of the shares, the $2 billion, I believe. Right. So the irony, of course, is neither side technically has the funds on hand to pay the ruling. The lawyers representing Proman and PETL, they have indicated that they are going to seek to appeal this at the Privy Council. Of course, if the actual judgment goes through, one would think that the money coming from Proman could be then used to reimburse the sale price back to Proman itself. But this is a very interesting chapter. One could argue, or one could ask the question, isn't that whole CLICO thing over? Is it finally done? I thought that was done a long time ago. Well, now, new dimension, the fact that the Court of Appeal has decided to add, say that there was fraud in this transaction, not just voiding the transaction. And of course, the Court of Appeal goes back to the events of what happened during the collapse, goes back to the MOU that should have, in theory, prevented the sale from going on, hence saying that there was fraud. Karen?
Yeah, so as I told you, sorry, Sean, and to the viewers, we could go into all the reasons that the court, other reasons that the court came to the decision, including saying that if you use an objective test to fraud, there's no question in the High Court Appeals view that there was fraud. But I'm not here to deal with whether that. I'm here to deal with the fact that without the MOU, nothing that Mr. Dupree did would be before us, and that the sale would have been, it's called a purchase and share agreement. And I'm reading partly from the judgment, where the trial judge said it was obviously clear to Sakal, she was the secretary of the company, on January 30th at 2:33 p.m. that as a result of the MOU, nothing could be disposed of or transferred. Therefore, any sale to Proman would be contrary to the same, and therefore, as argued by the claimants, had to be done surreptitiously. And she said, and it's the last thing I do is ensure the government does not get control. He also, I'm also quoting from a letter that Mr. Dupree wrote to me as Minister of Finance on the 4th of February. He said, I can confirm in accordance with Clause 20 of the MOU that the boards of CLICO and BA have not undertaken any disposal of assets without a schedule provided to the government for its prior approval. That is, and he went on and on. And then, similarly, trial judge said, Dupree's recognition of his undertakings under the MOU and his clear intent to deceive the government by lulling it into a state of comfort that assets would not be sold without proper valuation being done is as clear as day. And they went on to talk about his dishonesty. But they also said in the judgment, which I was trying to find in my looking at the importance of the MOU, the trial judge understood that the MOU, in his judgment, said the MOU presented any third party doing business with CLF and its associates an obvious impediment against the highly unusual background of a state stepping into prop of a private company which is threatening national systemic risk. So what I'm really wanting to say to the national community, and of course this just came out 2 days ago, I am not here to, because they are going to appeal, because there's a lot at stake and understand they're going to appeal.
Yes, I think it's in US dollars.
Yeah, they're going to appeal. I'm not here to deal with that. I'm here to say what the value of the MOU. That's what I'm here to see, which I, as a PNM appointed Minister of Finance, I have to say that, had to deal with for 2 weeks with a company that was a private company who was less than transparent, who you couldn't get them to tell you what the real position was. You couldn't tell you how many of their assets were under some sort of, what you call it, when they were not free to sell it because there were so many charges on the assets. And in that same, the judge stated, as the High Court, there is no doubt that prior to this requirement being inserted into the MOU, meaning they had to give us a schedule, they had to get our approval before they did anything, Dupree had free rein to transact as he saw fit. This is the judge. Mm-hmm. This is the judge. If there was any such accepted course of business that had been established over the years, though that prior interaction, this clause broadcasts an immediate restriction. So I just want the people of Trinidad to be able to understand that the decisions that the court was able to come to with regard to the purchase and share agreement and setting it aside, the decision the courts came to stating and giving the extent to which the undervaluation, which there's a whole reasoning behind it, which I'm not going to go into, and the overturning of the trial judge's decision that there was no fraud. I am just saying to you, and I'm reading from the judgment, not Karen Teixeira, it is the MOU that prevented CL Finance and Lawrence Dupree, a privately owned company, to do as they pleased. No longer could they have free rein, that's what the judge said, and it put restrictions on their ability. Yet, in spite of signing it and him acknowledging it, that they could not do as they pleased, and they had to get the government's permission under clauses 20 to 22, they quoted, he went behind the government's back on February 3rd to sell those shares to...
Well, the judges also said it wasn't just Dupree that committed fraud going behind the government's back. Proman, according to the judgment, also knew of the MOU and full well knew what they were signing up for, that this attempt to sell the shares was an attempt to bypass the MOU. So it's on both ends of the scale.
Yeah, but well, yes, and that's why I said I really wasn't going to deal with the reason why the Court of Appeal overturned the trial judge's decision, which they were in very high praise on every other. I mean, they quoted extensively from his judgment. The reason why, as you're saying, is not only Dupree, it is because Joseph Cassidy acted on behalf of Proman, and what he's saying is that to say that he didn't know that what they were doing was not above board, to say that he was okay, maybe he didn't act right, to say that it wasn't fraud, according to the Court of Appeal, it was fraud because he knew, and I don't want to go into all those details because it's taken away from my point, that there is provisions under their agreement for how you do valuations, and that would have taken a significant amount of time. It would take a number of steps, and clearly to go 3 days later and get a valuation, that in itself shows something is wrong. And then there are other things that tell you that Proman's hands were not clean, and that as far as the Court of Appeal is concerned, they disagreed with the trial judge that when it came to the objective standard of fraud, Proman was guilty. But I am not here to persecute or prosecute that. All of these things, whether Proman was guilty of fraud, whether the shares were sold at a gross under value, which it was determined it was, whether the PSA should be set aside and therefore no ratification could come up, all of that stood on the foundation of an MOU. I read it out. He could have done what he wanted before that MOU. He recognized it. Giza Sakal recognized it. And it's unfortunate that I, as a PNM Minister of Finance, having to deal with an unprecedented situation that globally, in the judgment, the court mentions it, Lehman Brothers collapsing, Bear Stearns in a matter of a weekend from Friday to Monday out of business, that under those tremendous pressures between the 13th and the 31st, with the fear I certainly had of the story breaking, and with oil trading at $23 a barrel, I, as representing the government and negotiating with people that were less than transparent, to come up with an MOU that this Court of Appeal and High Court says is the base, and without saying it directly, is the basis upon which the purchase share agreement was void, and all the things that flowed from it. And it is amazing to me that our Prime Minister will not release the Commission of Inquiry report into CL Financial. He said it was pre-action publicity was the reason in 2016 when Mr. Manning died. But they've gotten decisions against Monte and Dupree in the civil courts and hundreds of millions of dollars. So what is it you don't want to release? It's been released in the civil hearing. So why won't you release the thing? Why can't you release it? And why did you find it right? Because I will never forget the day when I came to say that he was not going to release it because it's on both sides of the aisle do not want that report released. And he talked about the egregious behavior, he was so... He said something has done, and he's given the DPP instructions to immediately look at this matter. What has happened? This is 2023. Nothing has happened. And now you're hearing from the leader of the opposition, there's another clique on the horizon. But that's a different story. And I'm not getting into it. I'm not getting into it. But I am saying to the Prime Minister, now the pre-publicity thing has fallen. It doesn't make any sense. And you have a Court of Appeal and a High Court saying it is the MOU that now, Proman Holdings owes this government because of its, not only that, but not only $2 billion for the undervalue, but all the dividends that were paid since then, as well as going forward, we will own 51% per share of Proman, the largest or second largest global methanol producer in the world. And yet, You do not find that important to talk about, that MOU. You do not find it important to pick up a PNM Minister of Finance. But all you could say is, she took out her money out of CIB. Bring the proof. I tell you, don't go to the police. Go on the pavement and bring the person, because I know it's not true and it's a lie. And if you want to go down that road, I feel I have better matters that could say that, you need to question the Prime Minister in relation to certain matters, because those matters have legs. Your own has none. And yet you find it right to go to your public meetings to decry me instead of, so you, as a PNM minister, now I have the Court of Appeal decision, which was given to me on 2:30 on Monday, that confirmed what I did was right. I did it under tremendous pressure, and it was the right call, and it is because of that right call that purchase and share agreement has been set aside. Now they go to the Privy Council. I don't know what the Privy Council is going to say, but as it stands now, it is the MOU. Talk about that now.
As Nicole was saying, I find this is similar to other situations that are more recent, where it seems as though the Prime Minister has stuff to reveal publicly, and yet he doesn't, and we have to ask, who is he protecting? Because the target of his public utterances that have no weight in the court of law, right? One would think that, yes, you will use all the evidence against whoever it is, whether it's you or the one example I'm thinking of is Gary Griffith, right, with regards to why the merit list was withdrawn. But all of the public utterances about why his stance is justified, no official action is taken. So the question is, who is being protected by not giving out the CLICO reports?
Sean, again, maybe I am so fixated. I'm like, you know how they put blinkers on a horse? All of those are what you call, when you deal, you have a central issue, and then you have all the other issues that you can look at. My objective this morning, and I don't want anyone to lose sight of it, is that it is that MOU. And I was the Minister of Finance. And it is that MOU that allowed in my respectful opinion, both the High Court and now the Court of Appeal, if you read the judgment, to set aside the purchase sale agreement, to say it was invalid and all that flowed from it. And yet, as a PNM appointed Minister of Finance, the Prime Minister cannot see it fit to say, well, you could put confidence in a PNM government. Look at that Minister of Finance under a tremendous global financial crisis. Companies falling left, right, and center, huge Iceland, Spain, Italy run into the IMF, developed nations, and yet not a run on Republic Bank, not a run on CLICO, not a run. You know why? It wasn't by chance. When this last thing, when that picture was taken, I had just gone to the cabinet to get ratification of the decision, because we couldn't let any of them know. Many of them were very angry with me. And so, why didn't I let them know? Well, I'm not going to let you know. So when I came, I said, hold on, you have to wait till I come. A picture speaks 1,000 words. So when that picture, and people have said, I think, and I may be careful, I'm not calling it, because the next thing I get a defamation action. But I will say that it has been questioned about how, my role with CLICO and CL Financial. But when we stood up there, the governor of the central bank, Lawrence Dupree on behalf of CL Financial, and myself on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, all smiling. You know what that reason was the reason? And it appeared to have worked. To let the people know that we are united in solving this problem. We are united in getting it right. And if the proof of the pudding was that there was no run. But why don't you ever say that? Because so many other companies cannot see that. And it did not happen by chance, Mr. Prime Minister. And you very well know that. It did not happen by chance, and it's unfortunate that you find it good to try to speculate with all kind of false innuendos, which I have invited you, begged you, to bring. I don't want any protection. Don't go in Parliament and say it. Don't go on the pavement and say it and bring the person. Because I know it's not true, and you know it's not true. But beyond that, release the CL Financial report.
That's more or less my concluding point. Release the report. Folks, we're over time. We have to take a break. When we come back, we open the phone lines. You could ask Karen whatever question you want on this matter. I guess you could also bring up what the opposition leader brought up. That's a whole next kettle of fish to unpack. Or we could go into what I have said, or emancipation that has just passed yesterday. There's a lot to talk about if you want to do so, but we have to go. We'll be right back after this.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this: screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you do now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight,
Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
To say about that.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. The conversation continued, of course. Not all of it is able to make it on air. But what can come on air is your participation in the conversation right now. So the phone number should be up on your screen. Call in if you have any questions, because those who remember this situation was when it unfolded about 13 years ago, was a highly contentious, very charged situation that I feel over time it has lost a certain amount of momentum, and people are potentially getting apathetic towards it. Unfortunately, it's just one more major story that we kind of put on the back burner, we put on the shelf. I won't fault you if the reason for doing so is because there are just way too many stories recently and you just can't keep up with everything. I mean, it's just one succession of nonsense after another. I would argue this one could say that the period in politics from 2010 or so, when this situation started, leading up to the snap election, moving into the partnership, into the current PNM administration, has been some of the most tumultuous points in our political history. So Karen Nurse-Shera is still with me. Call in, let me know, what do you think? What questions do you have? We don't necessarily want to get any further with regards to the other potential financial scare crisis. The irony, of course, is confidence is an important thing with regards to these situations. So media-wise, there's a catch-22. It's easy to talk about CLICO because it happened. But with regards to upcoming potential financial situations, that's a little bit harder because you don't want to, go off half-cocked, jump the gun, and then similar to what happened with CLICO, you kind of preempt the story and cause a reaction that's artificial. But we have a caller from Tobago. Good morning, caller. Caller, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, morning, you're live.
I'm so disappointed as a potential past PNM supporter. I'm so disappointed. Really. Like nothing moves in this country. And like, for instance, it's not PNM anymore. It's RNM, ruling National Party. I don't understand it. Whatever he says goes, and nobody has room for any ideas. If, for instance, you suggest something that is really valid and makes sense, once it doesn't come from his hierarchy, that is the end of it. And what disappoints me most is how they treated Mr. Manning when they lost the election. When I look at that, I say, if they could treat him like that, please let me get out of this.
Well said. And I just want to say that we were saying off air, but I think it's, yes, thank you, and it's relevant. It is this situation, this current situation, you're right, there's been turbulence from both parties, but now I think in these last 6 months or within the last year, it's like a battered wife syndrome. Or, you know, you're getting, as soon as you do one side, then you get another one, then you get another. You can't keep up. And I sometimes wonder if it's deliberate to keep you in a constant state of trying to keep up. What's the news story? What's the thing? The local government elections, Brent Thomas. You know, it's just on and on. Earl Christopher. I mean, the Police Service Commission, you just can't catch your breath, and it's done in such a brazen, disrespectful way that it reminds me of a battered wife. They've had 8 years into this. Listen, you got to open that door and get out, you know, because it's not about a question of party. It's about country. And if you care about your country like the battered wife, she either stays in that house. I mean, if she stays in that house, you know, don't come and complain, you know. Don't come and complain because you were getting some verbal abuse and getting all kind of bad treatment, and you knew it, and it came to a point where he was no longer hiding it from you. He was putting it up in your face. Every Monday morning he coming with something, and you either get numb and feel a sense of hopelessness and helplessness, which is not good for you or your children, or you open up that door and get out.
Quick, before we get an next caller, I would say it's not just verbal abuse. When you look at the murder rate, when you look at the poor baby that was shot by the Coast Guard, when you look at the fact that the police officer was shot by his own fellow officers, the 2 suspects that fell off of a chair in police custody, right? Just think about the number of controversial
about the procurement legislation.
No, but my point is,
deaths, right?
But my point is, there's also physical violence with regards to the abuse that we're taking. We have a caller from San Fernando.
But not from the government, eh? Let's be clear.
Good morning, caller.
Morning, Sean. Morning, Karen.
Morning.
I want to make 2 comments on what I heard from Karen this morning. All that I heard, even just recent, just a minute ago. You know, I would, based on what I have seen in quite a number of judgments coming out from the High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Privy Council's views, I would wait before I make any comment to see what comes out of this with respect to the Privy Council, what the Privy Council decision will be, because I'm not ready to blow a trumpet as yet for the Court of Appeal decision. That is one. The second thing is Karen speaking about this battered wife syndrome. Let me give you something on a lighter side. I have a friend in Greendot, and I go to Greendot. And whenever I go to Greendot, I would call and say, I'll come in next 3 weeks, or I'll come in next month. And you know what is the request from my friend in Greendot? Just start to collect newspapers and bring all the newspapers you could bring from Trinidad. And my question the first time was, why? And he said, boy, Trinidad like a soap opera, you know. Trinidad like a soap opera. It's like to keep up. And I would collect papers for a month, 3 sets of papers, Express, Guardian, and Newsday, and put it in a small suitcase and take it up. I'm serious. And that is entertainment.
Oh, gosh. For them, not serious for us, huh?
This is a person in upper management in Greendot, and this is what is being taught of what is happening here in this country. It's so sad, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, caller, it's like if we look at European history at some tumultuous time, except he's looking at current events. You know, I mean, to some people in TNT, American politics is entertaining. So I guess I could understand that. We have a caller. Sorry, Karen. We have a caller on the line from Shogunas. Good morning. Morning, caller. You're live. Caller? Oh gosh, we lost the caller in the middle of wrapping up with the last call. That is... I
just wanted to say, you know,
yeah.
indirectly and unfortunately, the fact that the caller, and rightfully so, said he wants to head the Privy Council, that's to tell you how much confidence we have in our system.
True.
And which is why perhaps there's a reason that people do not want to break away from the Privy Council, because from what he says, I have to wait till the Privy Council. So he, without saying it directly, he's expressing a lack of confidence in our judicial
It's true
system.
because, oh gosh, what was the case where the minister was counting judges?
That, I mean...
Right, but my point is, in that scenario, the government was winning with regards to the local government delay in the High Court and the Court of Appeal, and then the Privy Council said, nah.
Yeah, but that's a ridiculous argument.
I know. So in this case, we have the call, but I'll be surprised if the Privy Council rules against the Court of Appeal, but we'll save that for then.
Yes.
Good morning, Shogunas.
Good day, lady and gent.
Morning, morning.
I hope Karen could help me. As a small shareholder in Angostura, which is one of the companies Clico had taken over, Angostura have accumulated a huge amount of retained earnings, and the Clico people had them use the money to buy an extremely valuable asset. The important problem is that they did not put a lien on that asset which they bought. They put it on some other asset which turned out to be useless. The shareholders have been asking questions of this for the last year, and the claim is being investigated and whatnot. Who do you go to find out what's going on exactly there? If Karen can help me.
What do I say to that? I mean, I'm not in the government. And
is there a body? Yeah.
I don't know. Well, let's just put it this way. Based on the best predictor of future relevant behavior is past relevant behavior. And based on that, I don't hold your breath, because in my view, I think people are afraid to speak out. So even if there is a group, which I'm not aware of, that you can go to, whether it's the ombudsman, etc. I'm not speaking the ombudsman.
No, I want to know who's the person in charge.
Who's the person in charge of what?
Of the Clico inquiry and whatnot.
The Clico inquiry.
Well, who's still in charge of
no, it's the central bank. It's the central bank, because remember they had...
Okay, central bank. Thank you.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Professor. Probably the shortest call we've had from Professor. But I could see where this is a common issue in this country, where I have a problem, I don't even know who to go to address the problem. I need to try to find somebody who might know where I could go to. And that's just a whole other...
And unlucky if they're independent who can speak
out.
out.
Exactly.
Because they don't seem to be able to.
Because the situation now, will that be managed for the benefit of the people of TNT, you as a shareholder, as an ordinary citizen, not as a ministerial bigwig who could command...
But remember this, I mean, and this is what happened, people may not recognize this. The central bank bringing that action under the Section 44D powers, they really, to a certain extent, have a lot of independence in making that decision. So if that matter, kudos to the central bank for pursuing it, kudos but indirectly to the government, because there is something under the 44D provision that says, I think he has to get some agreement from the Minister of Finance. So kudos that this has reached where it has reached. And we hope that could be said about so many things that leave one with one's head spinning, that one cannot catch one's breath. So as I told you, we would need to open that door. But I want to say something quick about the man. Until if a caller calls, I will say. You have a caller?
No.
or Emancipation Day, I just wanted to say that I don't know if people recognize the closeness between Ghana and Trinidad and Tobago. They should watch the movie called The Hero by Francis and Solomon, which is based on Alder Cross's life, but also speaks about the important role that people like CLR, James, George Padmore, Cozy Harris, and a number of Trinis and mostly Trinidadians played in Ghana being the first African country under Nkrumah to become independent. And as I was told by someone else, Nkrumah invited Kitchener to sing at the independence celebration. Trinidad
we have played that on the station.
Right,
before,
but what
yes.
I want the people to understand, the connection, Telford Georges, the drafting of the Constitution is Cozy Harris. I think the first Chief Justice was Telford Georges. The Trinidad after World War II, they sat down with the Pan-African movement, and they had a great influence in Ghana becoming the first independent African nation.
Ulrich Cross is a name that my father would speak about a lot because he is the grandson of Miss Small that raised, well, took care of the Crosses once that whole situation happened.
Okay.
And I said this before, but it was always amazement to then watch the movie, because to me these were just. I saw the movie. We actually interviewed the lead actor who played Ulrich Cross, who is also an amateur historian himself.
Okay.
It was interesting now to hear this name that I've always heard about, to see what he did, and the implications, not only himself, but other Caribbean lawyers who were in a profession that was not necessarily valued. He was in England, they didn't value a black lawyer, but here comes new African nations are saying, hey, we need people who could sort this out for us.
We in Trinidad plays a part. So I would want the Minister of Finance, I could ask, on behalf, I said it on another show, if the movie The Hero should be required watching or viewing by students at secondary level, because it is going to give them a sense of their own history, the importance to Ghana. The King of Ashanti people, he's here in Trinidad, and we to have that sense of pride and sense of achievement in making a contribution to Africa.
It's just one more area I find interesting where we have in TNT these international names that did things on some of the biggest of stages, whether it's sports, arts, or now in politics and legal drafting, right? Where the quality, the potential is always there. This is now back in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, right? So it's there. And yet somehow we're caught up in some of the most mundane political nonsense right now that we've allowed ourselves to be trapped by. I don't necessarily get it. Maybe it's because our best and brightest, they kind of look at the situation here, at least politically, and they say, I can't deal with that. I'm either going to go in private business or I'm going to go abroad to do something. I just don't want to do that, because I've heard it from people around my generation in their 30s, young professionals, and people in their early 20s, now out of school, youth parliamentarians. They don't want to be involved. And I think your experience with this whole Clico fiasco of you trying to sort it out as the Minister of Finance and then being the target from both sides of the aisle.
I don't mind the other side, you know. It's my side.
Right, your side and the other side. So we know, folks, we know there's two things that Kamala and Rowley agree with. One is when to increase their wages and their pensions, and the other one is to attack the former Minister of Finance.
I particularly, but don't call you attacking me. But
I just want to say, it's cases like that, I think, that kind of cause the best and brightest of our young people to stay away from politics. Who wants to be subject to that?
I just want to say one thing in relation to that, and me sound maybe I think, especially even in the 1970s, people had something to work towards. There was you have to remember, people had a cause, whether it was the Black Power movement, whether you agree with it or not, whether it's the ANC, whether it's the Pan-African movement, whether it was all these African and Caribbean nations getting independence. There was some greater cause to which people could unite. Remember the sugar workers and the oil workers march. I was at university then, and it was such a great movement. Everybody wanted to be part of this whole thing of making Trinidad and Tobago. But you see what has happened now. What is there to believe in? People, and it's all over the world. To believe in is your cell phone. To believe in is your car you're driving. But to believe in is not, all of those isms and schisms have been replaced by people being, and there's no great thing to believe in or to contribute to or to be part of.
And you know, coming out of emancipation, because TTT had a fashion show, I think, at least...
Was the Prime Minister's wife part of it?
I'm not too sure. I didn't look at the whole thing. I think some of it, some of the designers was indigenous fashion style, some were African fashion style. Right, but my point is, we are also we're pumping out dentists and doctors and lawyers. We're also pumping out fashion designers. And to be fair, there's the lamentation of the fact that, you know, the cultural connection of the local Afro-Trinidadian population to their ancestral land has been cut due to slavery. And a part of me is thinking, well, not only should there be, okay, education and cultural exchange and stuff like that, but what with regards to fashion? We're wearing, for all intents and purposes, Western clothes because that's what we have. Why don't we have a further immersion into the culture? And one of the things is to tap into all of these designers who are designing clothes, who could produce clothes. It doesn't all have to be fancy, elaborate fashion show, runway, African wear.
I have to say,
it could be
look really good now.
Well,
yeah, she did. No, she couldn't dance. She couldn't dance. She's having trouble with the dance.
You see, I am trying to point us in a direction, and you are doing.
I'm connecting
fair enough.
But no,
it might seem benign.
What's her name again? Her second in command, which I don't address.
Oh gosh, which one is her second in command?
Yeah, I saw, let's say, a female that she had on with her on the stage in a leopard print dress. It didn't make it.
Okay.
You know, she put it out the card and said, let me see how African I can look.
Yeah,
but Kamala,
Animal
I have to give her
print
that. She put on that look. It's about fashion, it's about emancipation.
No, but I'm just saying, not only could it be an industry to develop, but there's something to be said about culturally trying to both advance the understanding of African culture for the Afro-Trinidadian community, but then also now to advance the multiculturalism for the country, and to potentially embrace the fashion of the various cultures that exist here that we could then potentially produce here and even produce clothes that are a fusion of our cultures and then potentially export that to say this is a fusion of our ancestral heritage in TNT.
But that has been part of my argument about cultural tourism.
Yes.
Okay, so that will be part of it. And before we go, though, I have to say Jared Besson, who died recently. When you're talking about understanding our history, he's required reading. I will only end with saying that because I think we reached the time when I have to say adios, au revoir.
Well, we both do.
And wait, and what's his name said? Hasta la vista, baby.
Lord. Folks, okay, so we're more or less out of time. I want to thank all the callers. Of course, it's interesting to see where the Clico saga, we thought it was over. I honestly, naively did think it was over at one point in time. And then I started talking points, and I have been educated by those who know better. But with that said, all I will say is, no matter what's going on, yes, now there might be a rice shortage on the horizon, and heaven help us, Jasmine rice eaters. Yes, there might be some interesting financial rumblings. Please do not panic over that, because that will be bad, especially if it's premature. But regardless of all of these things on the horizon, we have an election coming up. We do have an out-of-control crime situation. At the end of the day, you could control what you could do. So as my course always says, today's a day to have a good day.
Smile.
Hold on. Don't jump the gun. Make it a good day, though. It's up to you to make it a good day, folks. We can do it, but we have to try. And I'm willing to try with you. So, until tomorrow morning, bye-bye. We will see you then. We're out.
WESN.
I'm Keaton Shaw, and we are WESN, the content capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, is for all of us in public.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
Living in victory every day.
Did you tell your hubby about it, first of all?
I did.
When you were telling him, did you think that he was going to think differently of you or less of you?
I thought exactly that.
In case you've missed it, it's an encore of Nicole Larson Live. Relive some of the riveting experiences of everyday people who candidly shared